Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into the golden heart of ancient Egypt, venturing into the very sleep of pharaohs. Imagine, if you will, the stillness of a burial chamber, thousands of years after it was sealed. The air is thick with the dust of ages, and a faint ethereal glow seems to emanate from every surface. You're surrounded by an impossible, breathtaking gleam, a silent testament to a civilization's deepest beliefs. Gold everywhere. Not just trinkets, not just coins, but an overwhelming, pervasive presence reflecting what little light dares to pierce the gloom. It's almost as if the very air hums with the memory of the divine. And here's a little reality check for your cozy bedtime story. If you were actually there, you probably wouldn't survive the encounter, what with the ancient curses and the distinct lack of oxygen. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing, metaphorically speaking, in the antechamber of eternity, and the first thing that strikes you isn't the scale of the pyramids or the intricate hieroglyphs, but the sheer undeniable presence of gold. Why gold, you wonder? Why not granite or alabaster, or even, dare I say, a nice, sensible linen? For the ancient Egyptians, gold wasn't just a precious metal in the way we understand it today, a measure of wealth, a shiny status symbol for your latest Instagram post. Oh no, it was infinitely more profound. It was in essence the very flesh of the gods. Think about that for a second. When a pharaoh was laid to rest surrounded by gold, they weren't just being sent off in style, they were being physically transformed, imbued with divinity. This deep connection wasn't merely symbolic, it was considered a literal, tangible link to the cosmic order and the eternal. This belief stems from their intricate cosmology. The sun god Ra was the supreme deity, and his radiance, his very essence, was thought to be gold. So by surrounding themselves with gold, by adorning themselves with it, and eventually by being buried within it, pharaohs were quite literally attempting to merge with the divine. It was their ultimate insurance policy for the afterlife, a guaranteed ticket to eternal existence as a star among stars. Historians still argue whether the concept of the pharaoh as a living god was truly believed by the common people, or if it was a shrewd political strategy to maintain power. Yet the evidence in their burial practices suggests an unwavering commitment to this divine identity. Consider the sheer scale of the gold found in tombs like Tutankhamun's. It wasn't just a few necklaces, it was an entire golden sarcophagus, golden masks, golden shrines, golden chariots, a virtual ocean of precious metal. This wasn't just about showing off the kingdom's wealth, though that was certainly a pleasant side effect. It was about creating an indestructible eternal vessel for Pharaohs, for the pharaoh's soul. Imagine commissioning such works not just for a lifetime, but for infinity. Every hammer blow, every intricate carving was an act of faith, a prayer for perpetual existence. It reminds you a bit of commissioning a really fancy, custom-built coffin today, only instead of memory foam you're getting pure, unadulterated, divine essence. It's a slight upgrade, I'd say. The properties of gold itself played a huge role in this belief. Gold doesn't tarnish it, doesn't corrode it, maintains its brilliant luster seemingly forever. In a world where everything else would papyrus, human flesh decayed, gold was an anomaly, a substance that defied the ravages of time. This inherent quality made it the perfect metaphor and indeed the perfect material for eternal life. It was a physical representation of immortality, a substance that held its form and brilliance just as the pharaoh's soul was intended to hold its identity through the perilous journey of the afterlife. You could almost feel the ancestors of modern metallurgists nodding approvingly, murmuring, "Yup, this stuff's got staying power." This inherent resistance to decay, this unchanging brilliance made gold the ultimate medium for mirroring the divine. You see, for the ancient Egyptians, the sun wasn't just a fiery ball in the sky. It was Ra, the source of all life, the great creator and the ultimate symbol of rebirth. Every morning, Ra in his golden bark sailed across the heavens bringing light and warmth to the world. And every evening he descended into the Duat, the underworld, only to be reborn again at dawn. It was a cosmic cycle of death and resurrection. And the pharaoh, as Ra's earthly representative, was destined to follow the same path. So when you look at the immense golden death mask of Tutankhamun, you're not just seeing a beautiful artifact. You're gazing upon a tangible representation of Ra's eternal gleam, perfectly fashioned to ensure the pharaoh's own solar rebirth. The pharaoh, you must understand, wasn't just a king. He was considered a living god, a direct link between the mortal realm and the divine. His existence was vital for the prosperity of Egypt, for the flooding of the Nile, and for the very balance of Mayat, the cosmic order. And because he was so crucial in life, his transition to the afterlife had to be equally grand and, crucially, equally divine. Gold, with its unchanging nature, was the obvious choice to facilitate this. It wasn't simply an expensive material, it was a sacred conduit. Channeling the power of Ra into the inert body of the deceased pharaoh, ensuring his seamless journey into the eternal dawn. It's like buying the most expensive, most technologically advanced spacesuit for an astronaut, knowing that their survival depends entirely on its flawless performance in an alien environment. Only in this case, the environment is the underworld, and the stakes are well eternal. Think about the sheer practicalities of it. Gold is malleable. It can be hammered into incredibly thin sheets, molded and crafted into intricate forms. This allowed artisans to create detailed masks that replicated the pharaoh's features, miniature shrines that housed divine figures, and elaborate jewelry that covered the mummy. Each piece wasn't just decorative. It was imbued with purpose, a magical ward, or a symbolic link. It was as if every golden surface whispered, "I am eternal, therefore you are eternal." This concept extended beyond the pharaoh, too. Even high-ranking nobles and officials sought to include gold in their burials, albeit on a smaller scale, hoping to catch a ride on the pharaoh's golden express to the afterlife. Historians still argue whether the common Egyptian truly believed in the pharaoh's literal divinity, or if it was more of a necessary cultural construct to maintain social order. Yet the ubiquitous presence of gold in their elite burials speaks volumes about its perceived power. Consider a quirkier tidbit. The ancient Egyptians believed that the sweat of the gods was made of gold. So when you saw gold, you were literally seeing a divine emanation. It's a rather glamorous way to think about perspiration, isn't it? No wonder they wanted to drench their most important figures in it. It wasn't about ostentation for its own sake, but about literally wrapping the deceased in divine essence. Imagine trying to explain that to your gold dealer today. Yes, I'd like a few kilos of divine sweat, please, for my grandmother's eternal journey. You might get some strange looks. The pharaoh sleeping with gold wasn't about comfort in the human sense. There wasn't a gold pillow or gold mattress, thankfully, because that would be incredibly uncomfortable and probably lead to a rather stiff neck. Instead, it was about creating an everlasting aura of solar energy around the deceased. The golden mask, for example, wasn't just a portrait, it was a beacon, a shining sun in the darkness of the tomb, designed to attract and merge with the returning soul, the Ba, and the life force, the Ka, ensuring the pharaoh's resurrection. It sounds a bit like an ancient Egyptian version of a very fancy Wi-Fi router, broadcasting a signal for the soul to reconnect. And let's be honest, getting good signal in the afterlife is probably pretty important. As the pharaoh transitioned from the world of the living his journey into the Duat, the perilous Egyptian underworld was not simply a peaceful slumber. Oh no. It was an epic odyssey, fraught with unimaginable dangers, monstrous guardians, and a labyrinth of trials. And for this arduous journey to the Duat want gold wasn't just a pretty accessory, it was an absolute necessity, providing essential protection and guidance for the pharaoh's fragile soul. Imagine embarking on the most important trip of your eternal existence, and your luggage consists of pure, unadulterated divine essence. It certainly beats packing a weekender bag with too many socks, doesn't it? The Egyptians believed that the afterlife was a mirror image of the Nile Valley. But instead of lush fields and bustling towns, it was filled with fiery lakes, terrifying demons, and treacherous pathways. The pharaoh's soul split into its highest life force and by personality needed to navigate this spiritual obstacle course to achieve rebirth in the field of reeds. Gold, with its inherent purity and divine connection, acted as a magical shield, deflecting malevolent forces and illuminating the darkest corners of the underworld. It was like having the ultimate VIP pass and a personal celestial GPS all rolled into one shimmering package. Think about the various golden amulets often found wrapped within the mummy's bandages or placed on its body. These weren't just decorative charms. Each one had a specific purpose, a magical spell woven into its very form. The symbol of life crafted from gold ensured the pharaoh's continued vitality. The Djed pillar, representing stability, provided strength for the journey. The Gank scarab beetle, a symbol of rebirth and the rising sun, literally pushed the pharaoh towards resurrection, much like it pushed the sun across the sky. It's a bit like carrying a whole utility belt of magical gadgets, each one designed to counter a specific supernatural threat. And let's be honest, you'd want all the help you could get against a giant serpent named Apep trying to devour the sun. This concept extends to the pharaoh's golden death mask too. While we've talked about its connection to Ra, it also served a more practical, albeit supernatural purpose to preserve the pharaoh's identity. The Egyptians believed that the Ba needed to recognize its physical form to reunite with the Kai in the body, thus achieving resurrection. If the body decayed beyond recognition, or if the Bay got lost in the shadowy Duat, eternal damnation awaited. The golden mask therefore acted as an idealized eternal portrait, ensuring that the Bay would always find its way home. It's like a permanent, indestructible selfie, guaranteeing that you'll always be recognizable even after thousands of years. Quite the commitment to personal branding, if you ask me. A fascinating, albeit slightly macabre historical fact: the ancient Egyptians sometimes extracted the brain through the nose during mummification, considering it largely unimportant. The heart, however, was left in place as it was believed to be the seat of intelligence, emotion, and memory crucial for the judgment before Osiris. You can imagine the conversation: so the brain goes and the heart stays. Got it. More room for gold then. Historians still argue whether the elaborate rituals and vast quantities of gold were primarily for the benefit of the pharaoh's soul, or if they served as a powerful display of royal power and wealth to living subjects, reinforcing the monarchy's divine right to rule. It's probably a bit of both, isn't it? A bit of spiritual insurance mixed with a generous helping of, look how powerful I am, even in death. The sheer weight and dazzling brilliance of the gold were meant to guide the pharaoh's consciousness blind through the darkness. Imagine the pharaoh's spirit disoriented and adrift, suddenly confronted by the familiar comforting glow of the golden objects laid out for them. Each piece was a landmark, a waypoint on the spiritual map, leading them closer to the ultimate destination: eternal rebirth in the company of the gods. Now let's delve deeper into the concept that gold was quite literally the material of the gods. This wasn't some poetic flourish or a simple analogy. It was a deeply held theological belief. For the ancient Egyptians, deities were not ephemeral spirits floating in the ether. They had physical forms, and their very essence, their bones. Their skin, their sweat was composed of precious materials. And what, pray tell, was the most divine material of all? You guessed it, gold. Specifically, the skin of the gods was believed to be made of gold shimmering, with an unearthly perpetual radiance. So when you look at a pharaoh's mummy adorned with gold, you are quite literally observing an individual wrapped in what was considered divine flesh, literally connecting the pharaoh to deities. It's like getting a skin graft, but instead of human tissue, it's pure god stuff. Talk about an upgrade? This belief had profound implications for the pharaoh. As the living embodiment of Horus and upon death, Osiris, the pharaoh was already considered a divine being. But the act of encasing him in gold after death solidified this status, ensuring his permanent transformation into a deity in the afterlife. It wasn't merely a representation of divinity, it was a physical manifestation. Imagine the artisans meticulously hammering thin sheets of gold, knowing that each stroke was contributing to the literal deification of their ruler. It wasn't just craftsmanship, it was a sacred act, a theological imperative. You can almost hear the whispered prayers as they worked, ensuring every piece was perfect. Every seam invisible, creating a flawless divine skin. The malleability of gold, as we touched upon earlier, was crucial here. It could be shaped into masks that perfectly mirrored the pharaoh's idealized features, allowing the Iyaiyok to recognize its eternal form. It could be beaten into incredibly thin foils to cover entire coffins and shrines, creating a seamless golden surface. This wasn't just about lavishness, it was about creating a perfect, unbroken skin for the divine being that the pharaoh was becoming. Historians still argue whether the concept of the pharaoh as a divine being evolved from earlier chiefdoms, or was a more deliberate theological construct to consolidate power. Regardless, the evidence of gold points to its central role in this divine transformation. Consider a fringe tidbit. The ancient Egyptians had a myth that the sun god Ra, when he grew old and his body began to decay, developed bones of silver and flesh of gold. This explains why both silver and gold were considered sacred, though gold always held the preeminent position due to its connection with the sun and its non-tarnishing properties. It's like a celestial aging process where instead of wrinkles, you get precious metals. Not a bad deal if you ask me. The pharaoh's tomb then wasn't just a burial site. It was a sacred space for divine metamorphosis. The golden objects weren't just grave goods. They were components of a complex spiritual machine designed to convert a mortal king into an immortal god. From the gilded furniture to the golden canopic jars holding his internal organs, every golden item within the tomb contributed to this overarching goal. You can picture it as a bespoke divine factory operating solely on the power of gold. And given the sheer volume of gold, it was a very busy factory indeed. This deep spiritual connection to gold wasn't unique to the pharaohs alone, though they certainly received the lion's share. Even private individuals, if they could afford it, would try to incorporate gold leaf or small golden amulets into their burials, hoping to partake even in a small way in the pharaoh's golden journey to divinity. It was like everyone wanting a little piece of that divine action, hoping to catch a stray ray of Ra's golden light. And who can blame them? When eternal life is on the line, you'd probably shell out for a bit of divine bling too. Stepping further into the pharaoh's eternal resting place, you begin to understand that these weren't merely elaborate tombs. They were meticulously crafted three-dimensional cosmic maps. And every element from the orientation of the chambers to the intricate wall paintings was designed to replicate the celestial landscape, and the abundant gold played a critical role in guiding the pharaoh's rebirth. Imagine your bedroom designed not for sleep, but as a detailed diagram of the constellations, and your bed as a launch pad for the stars. It's a slightly more ambitious interior design project, wouldn't you agree? The Egyptians believed the cosmos was a reflection of earthly order, and vice versa. The pharaoh, upon death, was destined to become a glorified spirit, capable of moving freely between the earthly and divine realms, much like the stars in the night sky. The golden burial chambers therefore served as a miniature universe. A secure environment where the deceased pharaoh could undergo this profound transformation. The shimmering surfaces of gold were not just decorative. They were meant to reflect the light of the eternal sun, Ra even in the deepest darkness of the tomb, effectively creating an everlasting day within the burial complex. Consider the layout of the tomb itself. Often the burial chamber was located deep within the pyramid, or cut into the bedrock, mimicking the journey of the sun god Ra as he traversed the underworld during the night. The golden sarcophagus, often covered in spells and divine imagery, was positioned to align with specific astronomical points, ensuring the pharaoh's spiritual trajectory was correctly charted. It was a sophisticated piece of celestial navigation, only instead of guiding a ship, it was guiding a soul. And given the size of some of these structures, it needed a pretty big map. A fascinating mainstream historical fact is the astronomical alignment of many Egyptian temples and pyramids. For instance, the Temple of Karnak is largely aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, demonstrating their sophisticated understanding of celestial movements and their integration into sacred architecture. This same principle, though on a much more intimate scale, was applied to the pharaoh's golden resting place, aligning his spirit with the eternal cycles of the cosmos. A quirky tidbit: some theories suggest that the reflective properties of the polished gold in the tombs, combined with cunningly placed oil lamps or sunlight funneled through shafts, might have created an eerie, flickering luminescence intended to simulate the stars or the sun god's presence in the underworld. Imagine that a prehistoric light show, all designed to make sure the pharaoh knew exactly where he was going. And to think we complain if our smart lights aren't working. Historians still argue whether the pharaoh's ultimate goal was to merge completely with Ra or to become a new independent star god. Regardless, the constant presence of gold facilitated this astral destiny. It acted as a luminous anchor, preventing the pharaoh's soul from being lost in the chaotic expanse of the Duat, always pulling it towards the light of rebirth. It was the ultimate cosmic lifeline, a shimmering thread connecting the mortal coil to the infinite heavens. The very act of crafting these golden chambers was a ritual in itself. Every piece of gold, every carved hieroglyph on its surface was infused with magical power, ensuring that the pharaoh's spirit had all the necessary tools and guidance for its celestial voyage. It wasn't just about putting treasure in a tomb, it was about building a functional spiritual vehicle, a kind of golden stargate, designed to transport the pharaoh to his divine destination. And in a time without rocket science, gold was their highest technology for interstellar travel. A truly ingenious solution, if you ask me, and far less prone to launch delays than modern rockets. Moving beyond mere earthly value for the ancient Egyptians, gold transcended the concept of wealth as we understand it today. It wasn't about conspicuous consumption or building a colossal nest egg for a rainy day in the afterlife. Instead, gold signified something far more profound: spiritual purity and divine favor. Imagine if your bank account balance wasn't just a number, but a direct indicator of your moral standing and your personal connection to the cosmos. That's the kind of elevated status gold held for them. It made your personal finances feel a lot more existential, wouldn't you say? To the Egyptians, gold was inherently pure. Unlike other metals that corroded or tarnished, gold remained pristine, gleaming eternally. This unblemished quality made it the perfect symbol for the gods who were, by definition, perfect and incorruptible. Therefore, a pharaoh encased in gold was not just wealthy, he was literally enveloped in your divine essence, purified and prepared for his journey into the sacred realms. It was as if the gold itself acted as a spiritual cleanser, washing away any lingering mortal imperfections. No need for a celestial car wash, just a good, solid gold plating. This idea of gold as purity is a fascinating contrast to how we often view it today, where its value is tied more to economic stability or market fluctuations. For the Egyptians, its worth was intrinsic, tied to its divine nature. It wasn't about how much you had, it was about what it represented. A golden amulet wasn't just a pretty trinket, it was a condensed packet of divine power, a small piece of the gods themselves. This concept underpinned many of their rituals and funerary practices. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of gold created inflationary pressures in the ancient Egyptian economy, or if its sacred value allowed it to function outside typical economic frameworks. Consider a quirky tidbit: the Egyptians sourced much of their gold from the Nubian desert, often depicted in reliefs as being mined by individuals with darker skin tones, sometimes even suggesting forced labor. This highlights the human cost behind acquiring the divine material, a stark contrast between its perceived purity and the often brutal realities of its extraction. It's a reminder that even the most sacred objects sometimes have a complicated origin story. The pharaoh in his golden shroud was not merely surrounded by riches, he was imbued with sacredness. Every golden object placed within his tomb served to elevate his spiritual status, signaling to the gods that he was ready to join their ranks. It was a cosmic resume written in shimmering gold, detailing his divine qualifications. This went beyond just showing off power. It was about ensuring spiritual continuity, making sure the transition from living god to immortal deity was seamless. You could say it was the ultimate divine security blanket. Furthermore, gold represented the favor of the gods. A pharaoh who had access to vast quantities of gold was seen as blessed, chosen by the deities to rule and to shepherd his people. This divine favor extended into the afterlife, ensuring that the deceased pharaoh would be welcomed into the company of Osiris and Ra, not as a supplicant but as an equal. The sheer abundance of gold in the royal tombs was in a way a tangible manifestation of this divine blessing, a receipt for celestial approval stamped in pure metal. So when you imagine the pharaohs sleeping with gold, picture not just a bed of coins, but a state of being completely enveloped in the divine, purified by its presence and eternally basking in the favor of the very gods whose flesh they now wore. It was a slumber unlike any other, a truly golden sleep preparing them, not for another morning, but for an eternity in the shimmering company of the heavens. Having established gold's divine essence and its role in spiritual purity, let's now consider the painstaking process of crafting immortality's shell. The golden artifacts found in pharaonic tombs weren't simply cast or molded. They were meticulously fashioned, piece by intricate piece by highly skilled artisans. This wasn't just metalwork. It was an act of sacred preparation, ensuring the pharaoh's transformation into a divine being would be flawless. Imagine asking a modern jeweler to craft something not just beautiful, but magically potent, capable of securing your eternal soul. You'd probably get a blank stare and a quote that would make your eyes water. Every gilded object, from the smallest amulet to the massive sarcophagi, represented countless hours of dedicated labor. We're talking about gold, beaten into incredibly thin sheets known as gold leaf, so fine that a mere breath could tear it. This leaf would then be meticulously applied to wooden structures, furniture, and even linen bandages. Think of the patience required, the steady hands, the absolute precision. It was an art form driven by profound religious conviction, not just by aesthetics. This wasn't a rush job. Eternity was on the line. The techniques employed were remarkably sophisticated for their time. Ancient Egyptian goldsmiths mastered processes like hammering chasing, where designs are created by indenting the metal from the front repoussé, where the design is raised from the back. Granulation fusing tiny spheres of gold onto a surface, and cloisonné inlaying precious stones or glass paste into compartments outlined by gold wire. Each technique was chosen not just for its visual appeal, but for its symbolic resonance, adding layers of meaning to the final product. A mainstream historical fact is that the Egyptians were among the first civilizations to widely use gold leaf, demonstrating an advanced understanding of metallurgy and artistry thousands of years ago. Consider a quirky tidbit about this craftsmanship. Many golden artifacts, particularly the larger shrines or coffins, were made of wood, and then entirely covered in gold. This was a practical choice, as solid gold structures of that size would have been prohibitively heavy and difficult to move even for the Egyptians. But it also speaks to their ingenuity, using a less precious core to support a divine exterior. It's like building a supercar with a very sensible, albeit hidden chassis. This intricate crafting wasn't just for show, it was an integral part of the pharaoh's journey towards rebirth. Each piece of golden adornment, each gilded hieroglyph was a part of a larger magical system designed to facilitate the pharaoh's passage through the underworld and his eventual resurrection. The golden death mask, perhaps the most iconic example, was designed to act as a permanent, idealized face for the deceased, allowing the Ibai to recognize its physical form and reunite with the Kai to achieve eternal life. Without this recognizable shell, the soul might wander lost in the duat forever. Historians still argue whether the elaborate design of these artifacts was primarily to ensure the pharaoh's spiritual success, or if it also served as a means of employing a vast workforce and demonstrating the state's wealth and power. Imagine the sheer devotion required. These artisans weren't just employees, they were likely considered participants in a sacred endeavor. Their skill was not merely a trade, but a profound contribution to the divine destiny of their ruler. Every chisel mark, every polished surface was a step closer to ensuring the pharaoh's immortal transformation. It makes your average DIY project seem rather mundane, doesn't it? No eternal consequences for a wonky shelf, thankfully. Thus, the pharaoh's golden slumber wasn't just about being surrounded by beautiful objects. It was about being enclosed within a meticulously crafted necklace, divinely charged chrysalis. Each piece contributed to the overall effect, preparing the pharaoh for his ultimate metamorphosis into a shining, glorified spirit destined to dwell with the gods. It was the ultimate bespoke outfit for the afterlife, tailored for eternity. As the pharaoh embarked on his terrifying journey through the duat, that perilous underworld we've touched upon, gold, wasn't merely a guide or a representation of divinity. It provided crucial protection from chaos. The ancient Egyptians envisioned the afterlife not as a serene garden, but as a realm teeming with malevolent spirits, monstrous entities, and chaotic forces, constantly threatening to derail the deceased's path to rebirth. Imagine trying to navigate rush hour traffic in Ho Chi Minh City, but instead of motorbikes, you're dodging fire-breathing serpents and shadowy demons. Suddenly, your morning commute doesn't seem so bad, does it? The golden amulets, scarabs, and various gilded adornments weren't just pretty baubles. They were potent magical wards imbued with protective spells and the very essence of the gods. Each piece served as a sacred barrier, shielding the pharaoh from the myriad dangers lurking in the underworld. For instance, the Eye of Horus. Amulet frequently crafted in gold was believed to have powerful healing and protective properties, warding off evil and ensuring the pharaoh's bodily integrity. It was like having a celestial force field, personalized and exquisitely crafted. Think about the golden masks again. Beyond preserving identity and embodying Ra, they also served as a fortress for the pharaoh's head. Considered a vital part of the body for spiritual consciousness, encasing the head in gold was thought to protect the brain even if removed, its magical proxy was shielded. And the vital senses from spiritual assault, ensuring the pharaoh's cognitive faculties remained intact for the judgment before Osiris. It's the ultimate spiritual helmet, guaranteed to pass any cosmic safety test. A mainstream historical fact is the sheer volume of protective spells inscribed on tomb walls and funerary papyri, such as the Book of the Dead. These spells, often accompanied by specific golden amulets or figures, were considered essential for navigating the underworld and overcoming its challenges. The gold itself was believed to amplify the power of these spells, making them more effective against the forces of chaos. Consider a quirky tidbit: some golden amulets were shaped like tiny pillows intended to provide symbolic rest and protection for the pharaoh's head, even though the actual body was tightly wrapped and immobile. It's a sweet, thoughtful detail amidst the grandeur, a small golden comfort in the face of eternal uncertainty. It reminds you that even the divine might appreciate a little neck support. Historians still argue whether the primary purpose of these protective golden artifacts was apotropaic to ward off evil, or simply symbolic of the pharaoh's divine power. Most likely it was a complex blend of both, with the material reinforcing the magical intent. The Egyptians didn't separate the physical from the spiritual as neatly as we do. The tangible object held intrinsic spiritual power. The very gleam of the gold itself was considered a deterrent to darkness. Just as light dispels shadows, the pure radiance of gold was believed to repel the shadowy, malevolent entities that inhabited the duat. Imagine a perpetual golden glow emanating from the pharaoh's form, pushing back the encroaching gloom, creating a safe passage through the most treacherous realms. It was the ultimate "no monsters allowed" sign, written in the language of divine light. So, when pharaohs slept with gold, they weren't just showing off their wealth. They were actively equipping themselves for spiritual warfare. Every piece of gold was a weapon, a shield, a beacon, designed to ensure their triumphant passage through chaos and into the promised land of eternal rebirth. It was the most expensive and presumably most effective form of spiritual insurance imaginable. Beyond the grave, the presence of gold around the pharaoh in life was just as crucial as its role in death. It wasn't merely about preparing for the afterlife, It was about reinforcing the pharaoh's present status as living God's legacy, ensuring a smooth and undeniable transition from earthly ruler to celestial deity. Imagine the emperor of Japan or even a modern-day monarch being surrounded by materials that literally proclaimed their divine lineage in every waking moment. It adds a whole new dimension to royal bling, doesn't it? During his reign, the pharaoh was consistently depicted in golden regalia. His crowns were often adorned with gold, his staffs tipped with gold, and his ceremonial collars and jewelry were predominantly crafted from the shimmering metal. This wasn't just fashion. It was a constant visual affirmation of his divine nature. The very sight of the pharaoh resplendent in gold reminded his subjects that he was not just a man, but the embodiment of Horus, a direct descendant of the gods. This public display of gold was a powerful tool for legitimizing his rule and maintaining social order, reinforcing that his authority flowed directly from the heavens. You might even call it the ultimate form of divine propaganda. Consider the golden standards carried in processions, or the gilded elements of the pharaoh's throne and palanquins. These weren't merely symbols of wealth. They were extensions of his divine aura carrying his sacred presence into the public sphere. When the pharaoh moved surrounded by gold, it was as if a piece of the sun itself was gliding through the land, blessing everything it touched. It's a bit like modern-day celebrity endorsements, but with much higher stakes. We're talking about cosmic endorsement. A mainstream historical fact is that pharaohs were often depicted with golden skin in tomb paintings and statues, even when the statues themselves were not made of gold. This artistic convention underscored the belief that their flesh was literally divine and made of gold, a visual shorthand for their connection to Ra and the other deities. So even if the pharaoh wasn't wearing gold, he was gold in their minds. Here's a quirky tidbit. The pharaoh's sandals, even humble everyday items, might have had gilded straps or elements. This wasn't just vanity, it symbolized that even his very footsteps were blessed, and that he walked on divine ground, bringing prosperity and order wherever he trod. Imagine being so revered that even your footwear had to be partly divine. Your Crocs suddenly feel rather inadequate, don't they? Historians still argue whether the elaborate and consistent use of gold in the pharaoh's living iconography contributed more to his political power or to the genuine spiritual belief of the populace in his divinity. It's likely a symbiotic relationship where the visual reinforcement of his divine status made the spiritual claims more believable, and the spiritual belief in turn solidified his political authority. It was a perfectly designed feedback loop of power and faith. The abundance of gold in the pharaoh's life then was a precursor to his eternal state. It was a continuous process of sacred preconditioning, preparing both the pharaoh and his people for his ultimate transformation into an Askokri. It ensured that when he died, there would be no doubt about his divine destiny. The gold he wore in life was simply the first layer of the golden shell he would inhabit in eternity, a seamless transition from one divine state to another. Thus, the pharaoh's sleeping with gold wasn't a sudden post-mortem decision. It was the culmination of a lifetime saturated in the divine radiance of gold. Every glimmer, every flash of light from his golden adornments during his reign was a whisper of his eternal destiny, assuring his subjects that even in death their divine ruler would continue to watch over them now, from a celestial throne of pure, unchanging gold. Now let's turn our attention to the intimate, almost alchemical process of mummification itself, where gold played a far more direct and surprising role than you might imagine. It wasn't just about preserving the body. Gold dust and adornments were integral to the mummification process itself, intertwining the physical preservation with the spiritual transformation. Imagine a spa treatment that involves actual precious metals designed not just for glowing skin, but for eternal life. Your latest facial suddenly feels a bit less glamorous, doesn't it? The process of mummification was a complex ritual, spanning many weeks designed to ensure the body remained recognizable for the Ba and Koi to return. While natron salt was used to dry the body, and resins applied to preserve the tissue's gold in various forms was carefully incorporated into the process. Tiny flakes of gold dust, for instance, might be mixed with the resins used to anoint the body or applied directly to the skin. This wasn't just for aesthetics, it was believed to imbue the deceased with divine luminosity, making their flesh literally glow with the essence of Ra even beneath the bandages. Think of it as an internal and external deification process. The golden dust would literally become part of the preserved flesh, turning the pharaoh's body into a sacred relic, a tangible piece of the divine on earth. It was a subtle yet powerful way of ensuring that the pharaoh's physical form retained its link to the gods even after the spirit had departed. It's like adding glitter to your paint, but instead of for a craft project, it's for eternal cosmic significance. A mainstream historical fact. Microscopic analysis of some mummies has revealed traces of gold particles within the embalming resins, and even on the skin, suggesting this practice was indeed part of the mummification ritual. This isn't just theory, it's scientific evidence confirming their meticulous integration of gold. It speaks volumes about their detailed understanding of the material's perceived properties. Here's a quirky tidbit: some pharaohs even had their fingernails and toenails wrapped in gold thimbles or caps. This meticulous attention to even the smallest details underscores the belief that every part of the divine body needed to be preserved and consecrated. Imagine the patience of the embalmers carefully fitting tiny golden covers on each digit. It's a level of pedicure you simply don't see anymore. Historians still argue whether the application of gold during mummification was primarily to provide magical protection for the body, to literally transform it into divine flesh, or simply to enhance its visual splendor for the afterlife. Given the Egyptians' holistic worldview, it was likely all three, with each aspect reinforcing the others. Beyond the dust, small golden amulets and charms were carefully placed within the layers of linen bandages that encased the mummy. These weren't haphazardly thrown in. Their placement was often prescribed by specific spells in the Book of the Dead, ensuring maximum magical efficacy. A golden heart scarab, for example, would be placed over the heart to prevent it from testifying against the deceased during the judgment of Osiris. Each golden object was a spiritual safeguard, a programmed instruction for the afterlife. The ultimate goal of this gilded mummification was to create a body that was not merely preserved, but transformed into a perpetual vessel for the Kayan by Mianodst. The gold served as a permanent, incorruptible shell, an ideal form that defied decay and ensured the pharaoh's eternal existence. It was a fusion of science for its time and magic, all driven by an unwavering belief in the power of gold to bridge the gap between mortality and divinity. So when pharaohs slept with gold, it wasn't just on the surface. It was literally infused into their very being, preparing them for an eternity among the stars. Having undergone the meticulous process of gilded mummification, the pharaoh's ultimate resting place was not simply a tomb, but a profoundly symbolic space. The golden sarcophagi and coffins were in essence wombs for the pharaoh's spiritual regeneration. Imagine being laid to rest within layers of shimmering gold, each layer a step closer to rebirth, like a highly exclusive celestial birthing suite. It's a rather glamorous concept of reincarnation, far removed from, say, coming back as a particularly unexciting snail. These weren't just containers for the mummy. They were intricately designed spiritual machines. The multiple layers of coffins, often nested one inside the other like a cosmic matryoshka doll, progressed from an outer sarcophagus of stone to inner coffins made of wood, often entirely covered in gold, culminating in the golden death mask resting directly on the mummy. Each successive layer of gold served to intensify the divine energy surrounding the deceased, providing increasing levels of protection and promoting the regeneration process. It was a gradual infusion of divine power, step by sacred step. The very shape of the innermost anthropoid, human-shaped coffins, particularly the one directly encasing the mummy, was designed to evoke a sense of rebirth. Wrapped in golden embrace, the pharaoh lay as if in the fetal position, ready to be born anew into the afterlife. The smooth, gleaming surfaces of the gold would have reflected any light, creating an otherworldly glow that symbolized the sun's rejuvenating power. It's like a spiritual incubator keeping the spark of life alive until its moment of eternal reawakening. A mainstream historical fact. The sarcophagus of Tutankhamun consisted of 3 nested coffins, the innermost one made of 242 pounds of solid gold, a testament to the immense resources and belief invested in this regeneration process. This wasn't merely a display of wealth, it was a fundamental part of his journey to eternity. That's a lot of gold for one final nap. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some of these golden coffins had small holes drilled in them, believed by some scholars to be a point of egress for the baby soul to leave and return to the body. Imagine the little bee zipping in and out of its golden chamber, perhaps for a quick trip to the field of reeds before returning for a bit of an eternal rest. It gives a whole new meaning to popping out for a bit. Historians still argue whether the elaborate design of the nested coffins was primarily to provide physical protection for the mummy, to symbolize the various layers of the cosmos the pharaoh would traverse, or to simply ensure that the pharaoh's divine journey was as grand and unimpeded as possible. Given the complexity, it was almost certainly a combination of all these profound intentions. The inscriptions covering these golden sarcophagi and coffins were just as important as the material itself. These were not just decorative etchings, but potent spells and prayers from texts like the Book of Gates and the Book of Caverns, detailing the paths through the underworld and the rituals for rebirth. The gold provided the divine canvas upon which these essential instructions were written, ensuring their permanence and efficacy. The gold thus became a living text, guiding the pharaoh even in his deep eternal slumber. So when we consider pharaohs sleeping with gold, it's not a casual phrase. It refers to being ensconced within these multi-layered golden cocoons, each one a testament to an unwavering belief in eternal life and rebirth. The gold was the very essence of this sacred incubation, preparing the pharaoh for his ultimate emergence as a fully fledged deity, reigning eternally in the glittering heavens. It was the ultimate luxurious and supremely effective path to spiritual reincarnation, ensuring that the sun would indeed rise again both for Egypt and for its divine ruler. As you delve deeper into the pharaoh's golden slumber, it becomes clear that this isn't just about personal salvation or even royal deification. It's about the very fabric of Egyptian existence. Gold in its unwavering brilliance was a profound symbol of cosmic order, or Mayat, the delicate balance of truth, justice, and harmony that the pharaoh's divine rule was believed to sustain. Imagine a world where the stability of the universe literally hinges on the shine of your jewelry. It adds a certain pressure to getting dressed in the morning, doesn't it? Ma'at was the cornerstone of Egyptian cosmology, representing the ideal state of the world, a state of perfect balance and order that was constantly threatened by chaos or ideobatain. The pharaoh, as the earthly manifestation of divine will, was responsible for maintaining Ma'at through his righteous rule and meticulous observance of rituals. Gold, with its unchanging, incorruptible nature, perfectly embodied this eternal, unchanging order. By being surrounded by gold, the pharaoh was literally reinforcing his commitment to Ma'at, even in death ensuring its continuity for his people. Think about the sun's predictable cycle, rising and setting, bringing light and life. This consistent, orderly movement was a direct representation of Ma'at. Since gold was considered the flesh of the sun god, Ra, it became the ultimate material for symbolizing this cosmic regularity. The pharaoh's eternal golden slumber was thus a cosmic reassurance, a promise that the divine order would prevail even beyond his mortal reign. It was like a very expensive, very shiny cosmic insurance policy for the entire kingdom. A mainstream historical fact, Ma'at was not just an abstract concept. She was personified as a goddess often depicted with an ostrich feather on her head. This feather was crucial in the weighing of the heart ceremony in the afterlife, where the deceased's heart was balanced against Ma'at's feather to determine their worthiness for eternal life. The pharaoh's connection to gold and Ma'at ensured a favorable outcome in this critical judgment. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient Egyptian texts suggest that the golden light reflected from sacred objects could literally purify the air of the tomb and the surrounding sacred space, expelling chaotic or impure influences. So not only was gold good for the pharaoh, it was like an ancient air purifier, ensuring good vibes only even in the deepest darkness. Makes you wonder if gold-infused air filters are the next big thing for air quality in, say, Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City. Historians still argue whether the concept of Mayat Sag was primarily a top-down ideology imposed by the ruling elite or a deeply ingrained cultural value shared by all levels of society. Regardless, the pervasive presence of gold in royal burials underscores its central role in upholding this fundamental cosmic principle. The pharaoh's golden resting place was therefore a miniature universe where Mayat was perfectly embodied and perpetually maintained. Every golden artifact, every gilded surface was a silent testament to the enduring power of cosmic order, a constant affirmation that balance would be restored, chaos averted, and life in its divine cycle would continue. It was the ultimate statement of stability, a golden anchor in the swirling currents of existence. This symbolic connection meant that the pharaoh in his golden state continued to act as a cosmic conduit, channeling divine energy to sustain Egypt. Even in death, his eternal golden form was believed to radiate Ma'at, ensuring the Nile would flood, the crops would grow, and the sun would rise. His slumber was not a cessation of duties, but a transformation into a higher form of cosmic governance, all facilitated by the power and symbolism of gold. It was a rather efficient afterlife retirement plan where you still got to keep running the universe. Beyond the grand theological statements and the practicalities of eternal transformation, the hidden golden treasures within the pharaoh's tomb held a deeper resonance. They contained whispers of ancient secrets, imbued with profound religious and magical significance that went far beyond their material worth. Imagine not just a vault of jewels, but a library of magical knowledge, each item a coded message to the cosmos. It's like discovering a secret level in a video game. Only the stakes are your eternal soul, and the graphics are surprisingly good for something thousands of years old. Each golden object, from the smallest amulet to the largest shrine, was a repository of sacred knowledge. It carried not just the craftsmanship of the artisans, but the accumulated wisdom of priests, scribes, and magicians, who had carefully designed its form, its inscriptions, and its placement within the tomb. These were not just items. They were activated magical tools, designed to perform specific functions in the afterlife, from guiding the pharaoh through treacherous paths to ensuring his successful judgment before Osiris. It was the ultimate user manual for the afterlife, printed on pure gold. Consider the intricate details on many of the golden objects, vignettes from the Book of the Dead, depictions of deities, symbolic animals, and complex hieroglyphic spells. These were not random decorations. They were powerful incantations, visual prayers, and cryptographic instructions meant to be understood by the gods and by the pharaoh's awakened Akiya. The gold provided the incorruptible medium for these sacred texts, ensuring their power would endure for eternity, unlike, say, a papyrus scroll that might crumble after a few millennia. You wouldn't want your afterlife instruction manual to suffer from water damage after all. A mainstream historical fact. The practice of burying papyri of spells, or sections from funerary texts with the dead, was common, but the inscriptions on golden objects or gilded surfaces were often considered even more potent, due to the inherent divine nature of the metal itself. This highlights a hierarchy of sacred materials and their perceived magical power. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some scholars believe that certain golden funerary masks had small, almost imperceptible breathing holes, or slits in the nose or mouth area, symbolizing the pharaoh's ability to breathe and speak in the afterlife despite being mummified. It's a subtle but powerful acknowledgement of continuous life, even in the most profound sleep. It makes you think about all the little design choices that go into ensuring eternal comfort and functionality. Historians still argue whether the secrets contained within the tomb's golden artifacts were exclusive to the pharaoh and the priestly elite, or if their general meanings were understood by a wider portion of society. While the specifics were likely esoteric, the general purpose to ensure eternal life was undoubtedly known and believed by many. The gold therefore acted as a physical manifestation of esoteric wisdom. a bridge between the seen and unseen worlds. It was the language of the gods made tangible, ensuring that the pharaoh was never truly alone in his journey, but constantly surrounded by the collective magical might of his civilization. This wasn't about keeping secrets from the pharaoh. It was about equipping him with the most profound secrets, ensuring his mastery over the afterlife. So, as the pharaoh lay in his golden slumber, he wasn't just resting amidst riches. He was immersed in a library of light, a silent symphony of ancient knowledge. Each golden gleam whispering forgotten spells and eternal truths, ensuring his path through the mysteries of the duat was clear and his ultimate rebirth secure. It was the ultimate shining embodiment of a secret handshake with the divine. We've explored the cosmic significance, the divine nature, and the protective qualities of gold in the pharaoh's final journey. Now, let's widen our view to encompass the entire burial complex itself. The pharaoh's tomb wasn't just a chamber. It was a sprawling, meticulously planned, eternal dwelling crafted with a golden hue, to serve as a perpetual home for his resurrected spirit. Imagine building a dream house, but instead of for retirement, it's for infinity, and the primary building material is shimmering gold. It makes your current mortgage payment seem rather manageable, doesn't it? From the moment the decision was made to construct a pharaoh's tomb, gold was woven into its very architectural and decorative DNA. Not just inside the sarcophagus chamber, but in the gilded elements of cult chapels offering rooms and even the ceremonial boat pits. The entire complex was designed to be a microcosm of the divine world, a safe, eternally provisioned space where the Ka could reside, the Ba could return, and the A could flourish. The gold here wasn't merely an object, it was part of the very atmosphere reflecting the light of the eternal sun, bathing the sacred space in a constant divine glow. Think of the vastness of some of these complexes, like the Valley of the Kings, where tombs were carved deep into the bedrock. Within these colossal structures, even passages and vestibules leading to the main burial chamber might have had gilded ceilings or walls adorned with scenes featuring golden deities. This created a profound sense of entering a sacred, otherworldly realm, increasingly saturated with divine light as one approached the pharaoh's resting place. It was like a very grand, very expensive corridor to heaven, complete with special effects. A mainstream historical fact. The practice of placing gilded furniture chariots and even full-sized boats within the tomb was not just to provide the pharaoh with earthly comforts in the afterlife, but to equip him with the means to travel through the celestial realms and participate in the activities of the gods. These items, often covered in gold leaf, became vessels for divine journeys. Here's a quirky tidbit: some Egyptian architects and priests believed that the precise orientation of the golden elements within the tomb could channel specific cosmic energies, ensuring the pharaoh's spiritual regeneration was optimally powered. It was like their version of spiritual feng shui, but with actual precious metals and eternal consequences. I wonder if there were ancient Egyptian interior design consultants for the afterlife? Probably. Historians still argue whether the monumental scale and opulence of these eternal dwellings were driven more by a genuine theological imperative, or by the desire of living pharaohs to assert their power and secure their legacy for eternity. It's likely a complex interplay of both, where religious belief provided the framework and political ambition fueled the scale and extravagance. The golden hue permeated the pharaoh's eternal dwelling, making it a place of perpetual light and divine presence. This wasn't just about preventing decay. It was about ensuring that the pharaoh's journey to rebirth was undertaken in an environment that was itself imbued with the sacred. The tomb became a transitional palace. Designed to bridge the gap between the mortal world and the divine, its golden splendor signifying its purpose. It was the ultimate home sweet home for the soul, guaranteed to never need a repaint. So when we speak of pharaohs sleeping with gold, it extends beyond their immediate person to the very architecture that enclosed them. The entire funerary complex, infused with the shimmering presence of gold, became a sacred landscape, a divine residence where the pharaoh could rest, regenerate, and reign eternally in the golden light of the gods. It was a commitment not just to a burial, but to building an entire golden universe for one very important resident. So we arrive at the culmination of our journey, the very heart of the Pharaohs' golden slumber. After delving into its cosmic, protective, and even architectural significance, it becomes profoundly clear that gold wasn't merely a status symbol or a protective barrier. It was the ultimate guarantee of the pharaoh's continuous reign and connection in the afterlife. Imagine a king whose power doesn't end with his last breath, but actually intensifies, becoming a cosmic force, all thanks to the enduring presence of a single radiant material. It's a legacy plan that truly stands the test of time, unlike, say, a fleeting social media trend. The belief was absolute. The pharaoh's death was not an end, but a transition. He simply shed his mortal coil to ascend to a higher plane of existence, joining the ranks of Osiris and Ra. The gold that enveloped him was the physical manifestation of this ongoing divinity, ensuring that his power, his authority, and his ability to intercede on behalf of Egypt remained undiminished. He wasn't just sleeping, he was undergoing a divine metamorphosis, powered by the very essence of the sun. It was the ultimate power nap leading to eternal power. Consider the golden death mask perhaps the most iconic image of pharaonic burial. It wasn't just a portrait, it was a permanent, idealized face designed to be recognized by the Biyakas and to serve as a beacon for the returning life force. Encased in this golden effigy, the pharaoh was perpetually presented to the gods as whole, complete, and divine, ensuring his seamless acceptance into the celestial court. It was like an eternal, perfectly photoshopped profile picture for the afterlife, guaranteeing no bad hair days. A mainstream historical fact. The intricate rituals surrounding the pharaoh's burial, including the use of gold, were not merely acts of piety, but were considered essential for the continued prosperity and stability of Egypt. If the pharaoh's transition was not perfectly executed, it was believed that chaos Isfet would descend upon the land, leading to famine, disorder, and the wrath of the gods. The gold, therefore, was an investment in national security celestial style. Here's a quirky tidbit: some ancient texts refer to the pharaoh's spirit shining like gold in the field of reeds, the Egyptian paradise. This wasn't just a metaphor. It reflected the belief that the gold used in their burial literally contributed to their post-mortem radiance, making them stand out in the divine company. Imagine trying to explain that to your colleagues over Sai Pe Sua Ja. Here in Vietnam, oh, I'm just trying to accumulate enough good karma to shine like gold in the afterlife, for maximum visibility. Historians still argue whether the extreme emphasis on the pharaoh's individual afterlife journey eventually led to a more widespread, democratized access to funerary practices for common Egyptians, or if the royal burials remained uniquely privileged. However, the sheer scale of the pharaoh's golden accoutrements certainly set a benchmark for eternal aspirations. The golden embrace was thus a continuation of the pharaoh's reign, but on a cosmic level. He was still king, still divine, but now his dominion extended beyond the Nile Valley to the very stars themselves. The gold ensured his eternal connection to the divine cycle of Ra, forever rising with the sun, forever bringing light to the heavens. His slumber was the calm before an eternity of celestial governance, a truly magnificent and never-ending reign. And so as we gently close the door on the pharaoh's golden chamber, we leave him in his unending sleep surrounded by the eternal gleam of gold. It wasn't just a burial. It was a cosmic launching pad, a divine cocoon, a guarantee of perpetual existence. The gold ensured that even in the deepest slumber, the pharaoh continued his eternal dance with the sun, forever a living god, forever watching over his cherished land. Now, as the golden light fades from our mind's eye and the ancient whispers settle back into the silence of millennia, feel the gentle pull of your own bed, the soft invitation of your pillow, the weighty concepts of divinity and eternity, the shimmer of gold, and the perilous journeys through the duat can now dissolve like dreams at dawn. Let the echoes of ancient Egypt recede, becoming no more than a faint, warm hum in the quiet of your room. There's no need to worry about cosmic maps or golden chariots tonight. Your journey is merely from wakefulness to slumber, a simpler, softer transition. Just breathe deeply, letting each exhale carry away any lingering thoughts, any small anxieties of the day. The world can wait. Feel the comfort of your blankets, the familiar embrace of your own quiet space. Let your body relax, sinking into the mattress, heavy and calm. The Pharaohs had their gold for eternity. You have this moment of perfect peace. All is well, the night is quiet, and rest awaits. End of script. Sweet dreams.